This is an introduction into the personal budget project. I'm going to try and keep it as brief as I can and get right to the point. What we have in part two of the project is your opportunity to look at a mini case study involving Sarah Hilliard, and this is a spreadsheet that we've called Sarah's Financial Action Plan for her February budget. But essentially what I want to do here is to kind of walk you through with a little overview of what it's all about. Her employment goals she has set for the month of February were $290 coming from a part-time job and $125 from some support from her parents. And then in column F, you'll notice here we have the actuals, just like we do over here in column K. So we've already put in the actuals for virtually everything except for the savings. And that's where I want to focus next, is to have you think about what we mean by short-term savings. This isn't necessarily money that's inside her savings account, but rather money that she is planning on taking advantage of in her checking account or her bank account. And so because she knew in advance that she would be needing to spend $225 on her monthly rent, the reason this is a negative, that's of course in the red and in parentheses, she types it in as a negative because she's going to be pulling it from her own bank account. She's going to borrow from herself. The reason these two amounts are positive is because her cash flow is set now to zero after going through the mathematics that I'll talk about in a moment. She's in a position to put a little bit of money down for her vehicle down payment. Hopefully she can tuck away a little bit as she goes along each month, hoping to get ready to purchase a car. And then she even had a little bit of extra cash there to put into her emergency account. But again, all three of these are just account names that she's made up. The bank knows nothing of these other than it represents what is out there in her bank account that she has dedicated to these three different areas. If I were to pull, for example, those out for just a moment, this will better help you to see the cash flow idea as well. So now I have zero from savings. Income's coming in at $415 as a goal. She has a goal over here of spending no more than $532.09 in expenses, and then of course her payroll deductions. Well, notice that the cash flow is a negative there. If I were to double click this, and by the way, be careful when you're in any of the gray cells. You don't want to type any numbers. You're welcome to go in and see what is there for a formula, but when you're done, you'll want to either hit enter if you haven't modified anything, or hit this little X, or do an undo, whatever it takes, but do not change those formulas. In a nutshell, the bottom line for Sarah is that she's got income coming in, but then we subtract out what she pulls from savings, we subtract out the payroll deductions, and finally we subtract out her total expenses. Well, because this is not zero at the moment, what I have to realize is that she has what we would call a deficit. A deficit is when you overspend your budget, and of course a surplus is when you underspend and you've got extra money. So she's actually in the hole. But because she knew full well going into the month of February that she would need to borrow from herself to pay her rent, I'm going to go back up here and type in a negative $225. And now I can see that we're back into the black, meaning that she now has a surplus. And this is the way budgeting often results, is you will either overspend or underspend. Either you have a deficit or a surplus. Rarely is the case where you would hit it exactly to the penny. Just not going to happen. So because this is $67.12, for her she has some good news. She's going to set the goal of putting that $60 into her vehicle savings plan, and then the remaining into her emergency account. Now keep in mind, this isn't how it really turned out for her, but this was what she had set for her goal. How it really shook out is that she was in the red more than she would have hoped. And we can see that happening because over here in the expenses, she has spent more than she thought she would. She's got $124.48 in the red of overspending. So what we have to do is come up back into savings, realize that she's going to borrow from herself for the rent, and unfortunately that still gives her money in the red. So she definitely has a deficit for the month of February. Bottom line is, what you'll type into your spreadsheet is you're going to have to give her a 0 for her vehicle savings plan down payment goal. Not going to happen. And not only did she not put the $60 into that goal, she's actually going to have to drain her emergency account by the remaining $80.76. And that gives us a cash flow of 0. And that is what your first goal to accomplish would be, to get the February budget balanced out. You want to finish the month with a cash flow of 0 so that you can understand where everything actually went. In part 2 of our tutorial, we'll talk about the month of March, and we'll also look at some advanced ideas as well. Thanks for visiting.